Here to review step number 30 of the 67 steps. This one was called Peter Drucker, the Cluttered Attic and the Invention of Rules, Removing Disabling Ignorance. And this one focuses primarily on the principles of deceased business coach named Peter Drucker. He's written a bunch of different books that I've read, and actually the #1 book on Ty's recommended reading list is by Peter Drucker, and it's this book right here called Managing Oneself. That's a really short book, only maybe like 50-60 pages. You could almost be called a pamphlet, but some really brilliant ideas in there despite its brevity. One of the things I like most in that book is a quote on page 2 that says, "Most people think they know what they are good at, and they are usually wrong." This suggests that most people are ignorant to their strengths. And a few minutes into this lesson, we get a quote from Donald Rumsfeld that says, "There are known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns." We probably know about the first two categories, but it's that last category that does the most damage in our lives, the unknown unknowns, the things we don't know that we don't know. And you know, these 67 steps are about showing you what you need to know, and it's about changing your mental frameworks and changing the way you go about life and think about problem solving and interpreting things. And in the subtitle it says disabling ignorance, and that's about when people put two things together and think that there's a correlation to them negatively, so they don't do it. For example, they'll say, "I'm not going to read any books or learn any lessons from Warren Buffett or Oprah Winfrey because I don't want to be a billionaire." Or they'll say things like, "I don't listen to Justin Bieber's music because it's dumb. I don't watch the Kardashians because they're dumb." Well, maybe they are and maybe they aren't, but Justin Bieber's videos have 1 billion views. So you may not like the music, but can't we still learn something about what the human brain finds enjoyable and interesting? And you know, you may think that you're getting nothing out of the Kardashians, but certainly we can learn a thing or two about what people find as entertaining and engaging. We know for sure that the reason the Fast and the Furious movies are still continually being made is probably a lot of the idea that people love a continuous story. And Warren Buffett, we learn about in this lesson, says that the mind is like an attic. It gets full and cluttered with too many ideas and convictions. And he suggests getting rid of one big idea in your life every year. The idea of that will make room for new ideas. You know, Ty gives a suggestion on one way of getting new ideas incorporated into your life is, if you can, host a child that's doing a semester abroad. You know, children from other countries travel to the United States of America or wherever you live to spend a semester in that country's school system and in that culture. And by hosting someone from another country, you can learn a lot about their country and the way they problem solve and what they prioritize. And thinking that you know everything is dangerous. We mentioned a few lessons ago about being a dilettante, you know, someone that just reads one business book, one book on politics, one book on the economy or such, and all of a sudden thinks they're an expert. But this 67 steps is all about having what's called Sam Walton humility, the humility to believe that someone you're talking to or another resource knows something you don't know and you can gain something from them. And this makes for a much more well-rounded person. You don't want to be one-sided. Again, we would go back to the edge effect, which is the idea that you want to have a balanced understanding of subjects. You don't just want to only think one way. Charlie Munger says that one of the worst things you can have is too strong of convictions. It's okay to be confident, but be open-minded too. And he says the best way to determine if you really understand a subject is if you can argue the other side better than they can. And Ty has a great line in that he said a few times. I don't know if it was in this lesson or other lessons I've learned, but it still is applicable. And he says, "You can't have what you don't understand." And he says, realize that up through even a few hundred years ago, our lives were much simpler. Our brains were not as cluttered. You were pretty much born into your occupation. You probably didn't travel as much. There wasn't as many new ideas infiltrating your mind. And the lesson at the end of, the questions at the end of this lesson are, what did you used to believe but don't believe anymore? Is there something you believe now that you've never really questioned? And can you argue the other side of a strong belief? Thanks so much, and I'll see you on lesson number 31 of the 67 steps. Take care.